you for joining Adam and I today as we continue our nonprofit fundamentals video series. We wanted to talk today about top 5 trends that we are seeing for 2025 when it comes to finances, especially for nonprofits. So it's been a bit of a rough year. There's been a lot going on, but a couple trends that we wanted to talk about, and the first being giving. So Giving USA puts out a report every year about the state of philanthropy and where giving was and compared to prior years, whether it has outpaced inflation, whether giving is down. And so it's one of the trends that we're seeing now is that individual giving is starting to drop, right, Adam?
Yeah, so when you look at the trends going back, let's say 40 years ago, individual giving made up about 80% of all giving. That's now down to about 2/3 of giving, so down to like 67%. And in that number, it's not just the percentage that's going down, the number of donors is going down. So that percentage is getting made up of less and less donors, so it's really consolidating as well, besides it dropping. But with that said, individual giving is still the largest form of giving outside of government.
Yeah. So with individuals, individual giving being down, where does DAFs fall into it?
So,
And they're fairly new, right?
Yeah.
So it's only been, several years, really?
yeah, so donor advised funds or DAFs have been around for a while, but they got really popular over the last several years. And this is a slightly different form of giving where a donor can contribute money into a DAF, and they get a deduction. However, no money goes to a charity until they decide to. So they receive the deduction, but no donation. And that money could just sit there theoretically forever, gaining interest tax-free. It's designated for charitable purposes, but the payouts are not required. And this has become a very large source of giving for individuals, especially wealthy individuals.
Yeah. So that individual donor pool is shrinking.
Yeah.
What about the size of gifts? Are we seeing some changes there?
So average gift size increasing, what the donors getting, the donor base getting shrinking, and it becoming more of a wealthier group. The average gift size is now increasing. So with that, when you're thinking about strategies, donor retention is huge. Trying to keep your existing donor base in spite of the shrinking donor population.
So I would imagine that major gifts is very important.
Major gifts, very important. All forms of giving is really a focus right now. Looking at your donor base, seeing who's on there, who potentially could be a future major gift, let's say, potential donor. But looking at your donor base, trying to maximize it, trying to get recurring donations are all the strategies out there. And then, with all that said, right now, another trend out there related to giving is government funding. And currently, government funding is very volatile. The recent tax law had cuts to Medicaid and SNAP. They already froze federal funding at one point. They've cut funding for international, for DEI programs. And this is something that nonprofits really rely on. There was a study done from a few years ago that kind of backed into the number, but it showed government funding made up about $260 billion per year from a few years ago. So that makes up, almost half of all giving from all other sources. So if government funding was to go away, the other sources of funding really can't make up the difference.
Right. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Where it was once considered more steady,
Yep.
now it's a little more volatile with government funds.
Yeah, a little more unstable, unfortunately.
Okay.
So that's the current trend with revenue. I guess it's not really uplifting.
No, a little doom and gloom.
Yeah. All right, let's continue the doom and gloom then.
Okay.
So the next one is higher operating costs and inflation. While inflation isn't as bad as it was in previous years, it's still relatively high to the average. So that means rising costs for all your items, for salaries. With the different cuts in government funding, that's going to cause a rise in the demand for services, which is going to increase your operating costs even further. So just overall, just increasing trend there.
Right. Increasing costs, things like your insurance, especially health insurance. A lot of nonprofits have a significant amount of payroll and employees on the books. So I would imagine those healthcare costs are going to be expensive. Hopefully they're not rising too much, but we've seen some substantial increases on clients.
Yep. So, not really good news on the revenue side. Not really good news on the cost side. We're like 0 for 2 right now.
0 for 2. All right, so let's flip it back to something positive. So I think AI is a big buzzword, and I think there's a lot of innovation happening. So I do think that's a big positive for the industry, that there can be some efficiencies gained if you are utilizing AI and technology when it comes to finances.
Right. So I wouldn't look at AI as something that's I know the fear is that it's gonna replace everyone. I wouldn't look at it that way. I would look at it more as a way to increase everyone's efficiency. It will help further the amount you can do in a day, basically, by kind of reducing those menial tasks that are time-consuming, low value, and kind of doing away with those for a human to do.
Yeah, so it could be utilized in areas like bookkeeping and grant tracking, a number of different ways in-house that you can use technology. So it's really important to stay up with the times, with the technology and how it can best be efficient for you.
You could use it more than just for emails, basically.
Right. So that one's not so bad.
It's not too bad, no.
All right. So next one would be increased scrutiny over an organization's financial health. So as a nonprofit, your financials are public information when your 990 is available to donors and out on various websites. So I think we've seen foundations be a little more cautious when giving out grants, giving out awards, looking at a nonprofit. A lot of foundations want to make sure that they're giving to a nonprofit that is sustainable and is going to be able to use funds to further their programs for a number of years. So there's been a little bit more scrutiny over financial health.
Right, and with all the information out there available to us, it just gets more and more attention. And with tools like AI now, it's more accessible where people can really digest more information at a time. So it's really increasing the amount of transparency when it comes to nonprofits who have to disclose everything under 990, which is public information. There's other forms of transparency that may not work in nonprofits' favor. We know the current administration has been anti-DEI, and that's impacted nonprofits' funding, who have potentially put that on their website or part of their programmatic activities, things of that nature. So that kind of transparency is potentially a negative in that sense.
Very true.
Yeah.
Okay, and our last trend is around payroll. Again, nonprofits, that's one of the largest expenses, and one of the trends that we're seeing is more outsourcing from the finance department and even other areas within the firm. Things like your HR and your technology is usually outsourced, so one of those trends is definitely outsourced accounting services.
Yeah, with with the aging population, baby boomers retiring, potentially not people behind who could take up the reins, outsource functions is becoming more and more relied on. And if you think about it, as a nonprofits are good at programmatic activities. That's what they do. The back office stuff is necessary for the program to run, but maybe not in their wheelhouse. So outsourcing that to other experts may just make more sense financially and from operationally as well.
I think a good example is the finance director that has to wear multiple hats. So, maybe you don't really need a full-time finance director. Maybe you need someone more in tune with operations and other things within the organization. So you may want to split that up into 2 positions and outsource or have someone part-time. Outsourcing could be really efficient when you don't need a full-time CFO or when you don't need a full-time finance director, or if you're having a hard time staffing your accountants. So that could be an area of a lot of efficiency, and same when it comes to HR. There's always rules changing around HR with employees being remote and in other states. You want to make sure that you are in compliance with all of the rules that you need to be. So unless you have a very seasoned, experienced HR professional in-house, you may want to consider outsourcing to someone who knows these rules and deals with it day in and day out and does it on a part-time basis.
There's a lot of skill sets out there, a lot of experts out there who are willing to do it on a fractional basis. So, instead of hiring someone potentially full-time, when you may only need a few hours a week, this could be a good way to really save money but still get that expertise in-house.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, those are our, 5 financial trends. I don't think they were that positive.
No, some do, some aren't.
Some there? Okay.
So hopefully you find them helpful and you can plan for the year ahead.
Thank you.